The Great Worm Heist by J.D. Okoro. Narrated by Peter Evans. Three crows on a farm near the goats and sheep saw a squirm of worms in a compost heap. Longing to eat them, the crows hatch a plan to break into the heap and snatch all that they can. Let's grab the worms and then eat them alive. There's a food chain and only the strongest survive. So the big crow, a raven, said,
I'll get a drill to tunnel deep into the worm's muddy hill.
The hooded crow said,
I'll find us a long beak to pull all the worms out of their earthy peak.
While the small crow, a jackdaw, had one thing to say,
I'll have to find somewhere to stash them away.
The rest of the raid was planned out and agreed, and the crows went to find all they'll need to succeed. The raven approached a woodpecker nearby and said, as it chewed on the thigh of a fly,
Help me steal worms, and then I'll give you 5. There's a food chain, and only the strongest survive.
Of course, tapped the woodpecker. I'll use my bill to drill our way in, and then we'll eat all our fill.
So the woodpecker joined the raven's crooked mob, and off they all went on their mission to rob. The hooded crow spoke to a fabulous snipe, a bird with a beak that's as long as a pipe.
Help me steal worms and then I'll give you 5. There's a food chain and only the strongest survive. I will, cried the snipe. My beak's like a long bag. I can fill it with worms and then carry the swag.
So the snipe joined the hooded crow's crafty old mob, and off they all went, almost ready to rob. The jackdaw then spoke to a snuffling mole, emerging out of his underground hole.
Help me steal worms, and then I'll give you 5. There's a food chain, and only the strongest survive.
Yes, sniffed the mole. I can build you a lair. You can store every one of the worms inside there.
So the mole joined the jackdaw and his shady mob, and off they all went, armed and ready to rob. Not far from the compost heap, Mole had a thought.
I don't need the jackdaw. I don't need to be taught. I have claws that are strong and can dig a big lair. I can take all the worms. I do not need to share.
Both the snipe and the woodpecker thought the same too.
I don't need to share worms with the rest of this crew. I can reach with my beak.
I can drill. I'll be fine. I can grab all the worms for myself. They'll be mine.
By now at the compost heap, the plan was set, as the crows and their devious helpers had met. The woodpecker hammered, the snipe reached right in. The mole began digging, the crows wore a grin. The worms were pulled out with a stretch and a tug. Some were stored in the lair that the mole had just dug. The raven then said,
I've got an idea,
and whispered so just the 2 others could hear.
We don't need the woodpecker, snipe, or the mole. Where there once was a heap, there is now a large hole. Let's get rid of the helpers, take all the worms too.
All nodded, and off the sly raven then flew. Not far away was a goshawk in flight, hunting for something to grab and to bite. The raven called over to her with a sneer, and said as the predator descended near,
I'll show you a farm where delicious food grows. There's a snipe, mole, woodpecker, and 2 juicy crows. If I take you there, you can eat them alive. There's a food chain, and only the strongest survive.
Show me the way,
the great goshawk now sang.
But what's in it for you once I've eaten that gang?
The raven replied,
They are horrid like germs. If you gobble them up, I can eat all the worms.
By now at the compost heap, things had turned bad. The snipe was not pleased with the worms the mole had. The woodpecker fumed that the snipe had a lot, and the mole raged at what the woodpecker had got.
You've taken too much. No, I've taken too few.
Give me 7 of yours.
There's no need to argue. You're a cheat.
You should share.
You owe me at least 9.
Then the mole grabbed them all and said,
These worms are mine.
A struggle began and a tug of war too, each side pulling the worms till they all split in two. Then they scrambled to eat, the halves wriggling around. How they pecked at the earth, how they scratched at the ground. The jackdaw and hooded crow, down by the cattle, had heard the commotion, so both joined the battle. The jackdaw was ruffled in this big kerfuffle. The hooded crow roughed and cuffed all in a scuffle. And then, without warning, a terrible sight. The goshawk swooped down with her huge appetite. She gobbled the woodpecker, snipe, and the mole. The jackdaw and hooded crow were swallowed whole. The raven saw this and was so overjoyed, complimenting the goshawk on skills she deployed.
Your attack was magnificent, simply divine. You got rid of the others. These worms are now mine.
But just as the raven got ready to feast, the goshawk moved closer and smiled.
Dear beast, this food chain has levels. The worms are down low. Above them are moles, snipes, woodpeckers, and crows. I'm not in the middle or down at the bottom. I'm right at the top, just in case you've forgotten.
And then, with a look that resembled a sneer, she said to the raven,
Your story ends here. I'm sorry, but I'll have to eat you alive. It's a food chain, and only the strongest survive.
And with that she swallowed the raven head first. This ending was not what the crows had rehearsed. With her belly now full, the goshawk sought rest, so she slowly flew off, heading back to her nest. As for the worms, well, they had the last laugh. Their bodies grew back, though they'd been snipped in half. They all then moved into a new compost heap, way down on the farm near the goats and the sheep. The end.